NHRA Today.
And finally agreed to marry me, the first thing we did was go straight to Hayes Jewelers.
Oh, I like that. I do.
Everybody in racing knows Hayes Jewelers has the finest selection of jewelry around, and diamonds too.
But what Chuck didn't tell me that day was not only were we going to go find our diamond at Hayes Jewelers, but he'd already called the preacher. You got it. We got married at Hayes Jewelers.
Yeah, that was one of my better surprises.
Oh, I'd say it was a surprise.
Hey, it was either get married at Hayes Jewelers, surrounded by all those pretty diamonds, or downtown at the Justice of the Peace.
Hayes Jewelers just off the I-85 bypass in Lexington for all life's special moments.
I think I did a good job picking out a pretty diamond.
Yeah?
And a pretty wife.
Good save.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Inside NASCAR. I'm in Huntersville, North Carolina at Joe Gibbs Racing. This team is busy building new Pontiacs for the 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup season. They've been racing Chevrolets in the past, but the Interstate Batteries colors will be on Pontiacs starting next year. Of course, Bobby Labonte is the driver of these cars. Joe Gibbs is part of our program today, and we'll have lots more for you in this 1 hour of Inside NASCAR.
1 week after sitting center stage at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, the three men who had starring roles in the championship season reflect on their whirlwind weekend in the Big Apple. Terry Labonte, Gary Dehart, and Rick Hendrick fill us in on their emotion-filled experience. Just 5 weeks after their season finale at Las Vegas, the Craftsman Truck Series competitors fired their engines for the first time at the Walt Disney World Speedway in preparation for the 1997 season opener in January. We'll fill you in on all the happenings from the Sunshine State. 1996 may have been the worst roller coaster season of Dale Earnhardt's illustrious career. 2 wins, a horrifying wreck at Talladega, and a streak of 28 races without a win that he carries into the 1997 season. The Intimidator might just be even more focused than ever. We'll look back at the 96 season with the 7-time champion.
Today's show is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Take it to the star. And by Miller Brewing Company, proud sponsor of the Miller Racing Team. We race for beer. This segment of Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Take it to the star.
The 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup season was officially closed last week during the awards banquet at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. Terry Labonte, the champion, his crew chief Gary Dehart, and car owner Rick Hendrick were the stars. They had a great time in New York, and Marlo Klein files this report.
I will not promise you that I'll be the best Winston Cup champion that we've ever had, but I will promise you I'll do the best job I can representing the sport I love so much.
Terry Labonte took on New York in grand style while celebrating his second title. The newly crowned 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup champion is 12 years older this time around. The second time is a little sweeter for the 40-year-old. He can enjoy it with not only his wife, Kim, but this time his kids will remember it also.
I think one thing that really makes me feel good about this championship is the last time I won one, they were 1 and 3 years old. Christy was 1 and Justin was 3, and they're 13 and 15 now. So they'll remember this trophy. They don't remember the other one. They see it all the time, but they don't know how I got it. So.
Has this been a dream come true with him?
It sure has. You know, I hadn't talked to Terry very much in the last few weeks. I probably hadn't said 10 words to Terry in the last 2 weeks. We've been all busy doing Japan, doing other things, you know, Unical things, and getting ready for the holidays. So we've really been busy, but working with someone like Terry, it makes everything easy. It makes the whole job. It's a wonder, you know, why you'd even get paid to get for doing this job, because you love it so much. And working with Terry really makes a big difference.
big year for us, no question about that. You know, it started out the year and got a great team and running well, and went through the deal where we broke Richard Petty's record, and that was kind of a pretty exciting couple of weeks of the season for us. And then to come back and to win the championship in the same year, it was really incredible. It means a lot to me personally, just because of the fact it's been so long since I won a championship before, in the past, and just very satisfying.
I guess I know why Dale Earnhardt and Childress and them won so many championships. They liked it when they did it. So we're going to do it some more.
And I went through this last year. I mean, you know, just the emotion of you know, a young kid that had a dream and a love for something that's been able to fulfill it. So, you know, it's, you know, I always feel like when I did last year, I felt like I was sitting in Richard Childress' seat, and I shouldn't be up there.
It's been a great week, you know, and it was a lot of fun coming to New York and doing all the things that the champion gets to do, and I'm glad I'm getting to go home tomorrow, but it's been a fun week.
It's still sinking in. I still pinch myself to make sure it's happening. But tonight, the longer the night went, the more I realized that it was a great honor.
Hendrick Motorsports' repeat was emotional for its leader, Rick Hendrick. Hendrick has thought a lot about how far his empire has come.
I grew up dreaming about going to races and being involved in races, and to end up with the kind of year we've had, to celebrate something that started 10 years ago with 5 people and a lot of hard work. So I get caught up in the emotion of what's really happened to us.
Without a doubt, one of the biggest moments in my life, and it's I really do want to do it again. I'd like to do it a few more times before I have to retire anyway.
It's exciting. It's really exciting being here, and I really look forward to coming up here this time. And it's always a lot more fun when you come up here to New York and you're the champion. So that makes it a little bit more enjoyable.
It's the Iceman, you know, it's the Iron Man, but he's a real man, and he's a champion. Terry, thank you for bringing us our second championship.
1996 was not the kind of year the 7-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt and the Richard Childress GM Goodwrench team had hoped for. Their goal was to win their 8th NASCAR Winston Cup championship, and they were in good shape to do that until the big wreck in Talladega in July, which injured Earnhardt, set them back. He had won 2 races up to that point, didn't win any after that, finally finished 4th in the final point standings. While they were in Japan a couple of weeks ago, Stephanie Boyd talked to Dale Earnhardt about their season.
When Dale Earnhardt traveled to Japan for the Suzuka Thunder Special 100, he was still trying to shake off the effects of a disappointing 1996 season. A legitimate shot at an 8th Winston Cup title had come up considerably short, but like a true champion, Earnhardt was there supporting the sport that's made him a star.
I think it's smart on NASCAR's part to try to get the international race fan involved, and it'll give us more strength and more backbone in the sport of auto racing or racing. And I don't know, it was probably a tough time to do it when we were expanding the schedule back in the U.S. and losing a track or two, and maybe even worried about losing another track or two. But it's tough to decide whether you justify coming here or not. But this is a race after the season. It is a race that it's an invitational. You didn't have to come. It's not by means everybody's not here. There's a lot of race cars and teams that aren't here, chose not to come, but that was invited because the other ones that are glad they're probably not here because of the expense of it. But I myself, I'm pretty comfortable and happy of being part of history, part of NASCAR history, coming to Japan, bringing a little more international flair to our sport, a little more credibility as far as the international market goes.
But even in a different country, there was no escaping the fact that Earnhardt had gone from leading the Winston Cup points in the first half of '96 to dropping all the way to 4th in the final standings. In fact, he lost the lead exactly at the halfway point of the season, and a few races later, his wreck at Talladega only sealed his fate.
if we hadn't had the wreck, and if's a big word in racing, we would have had a decent year and probably would have been running for the points at the end or more competitive for the points. But we just had a tough time after the wreck, and we had several races that I can blame it on the injuries, but I can't blame it on the injuries. We should have at least finished or had some decent finishes, but we had some bad finishes at Darlington and wrecked, and Bristol we wrecked, and just had some bad races. And I just can't put my finger on it. But I'm not, I can't blame it on the accident. Plate hurt, pretty bad hurt there for a while, but people see you get out of a race car that's crashed pretty bad and think, well, he's okay. But the inside of your body is really not okay. You're bruised up and banged up pretty bad, and it takes a while to heal, and there's still twinges of pain even in November here after the wreck, and it just takes time to work that out. But I can't, we ended up fourth in the points and won a couple of races in 96, and I'm not going to write it off as a bad year. It was a decent year, but we look forward to 97. We're working our team out and looking toward the new year.
Especially now that Larry McReynolds has been hired as crew chief on the Goodwrench Chevys. That's a major coup for Richard Childress Racing and should help silence the doubters who said Earnhardt's losing his edge.
Sometimes you just you just have a bad year, or just things don't go your way, and they're ready to write me off most any time I have a bad race or a bad year. They say, well, he's getting older and it's starting to slow down. But I got news for him. I haven't had any thoughts of slowing down or the drive to win or the will to win and to go out and do the job. You can look at Talladega and the crash, and look at, I was in a race car the next day fitting up the seat for Indianapolis, and we had tested so well up there. I was really disappointed that we didn't get to race. I didn't get to run the whole race, but we did qualify and qualified well. Went to Watkins Glen, sat on the pole, and like the dummies decided to stay in the car and race the whole race, and it really, I think, set me back even further. It, didn't injure anything more, but it sure, kept the injuries from healing as quick as they needed to. So it's still, you just sort of take things as they come and try to go forward, and that's what we did.
This isn't the first time Earnhardt's had an off year. In '92, he struggled badly and finished 12th in points, only to come back and win back-to-back titles in '93 and '94. Since then, though, his own business interests have been growing, and you might think that would make it hard to stay focused on driving. Earnhardt says not so.
Number one in my life is my family and the good Lord, and number two is racing. It's what it takes to make it in the world, and my world is the three team, and I can't do anything without it. Everything I have outside of my family and the church came from racing. If I hadn't won the championships and won the races, I wouldn't have a Chevrolet dealership. I wouldn't have a Busch team or a truck team, or my kids wouldn't be able to afford to race like they're doing. And I just, I'm fortunate. I know what got me here, and I came to the dance with, I knew who I came to the dance with, and that's who I'm going to go home with.
Of course, Dale and his wife already own a Busch and a truck team, and it's no secret he's laying the groundwork to be a Winston Cup owner when he finally hangs up his helmet. As for just when that might be, don't expect it anytime soon.
Well, I don't think it'll ever be not right. I think it'll be a time when you'll know you can't do the things that you need to do to be competitive for the team, and I'm watching for those signs in the years to come. I don't see them in the near future. I don't see them in the next 2 years. I know there's a time, though, when I'm going to want to stay home or not get in that race car and race that race. And when I dread it or wish I was somewhere else, I'd probably get out and go somewhere else.
Well, Dale Earnhardt is about as pumped up as I've seen him in a long time about the 1997 season with his new crew chief, Larry McReynolds. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series have already been testing for the 1997 season, and we were there. That story when we come back.
What's so good about this race is, we really haven't had a weekend off yet. We get to come out here so early in the year, and get to bring the family out a couple days early and go play at Disneyland and come out here and race.
This is a new Pontiac that crew chief Jimmy Makar and his staff are building here at Joe Gibbs Racing for Bobby Labonte. They'll test this car next month at the Daytona International Speedway. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series have already tested in Florida at the new Disney World Speedway. They were down there last week. A lot of trucks showed up for that. They'll kick off their season at that speedway next month. Stephanie Boyd was there, and she files this report.
When most people think of Walt Disney World, they think of Mickey, Minnie, and Cinderella's castle. Well, for 2 days, those guys had to take a back seat as the new Walt Disney World Speedway provided the most thrilling rides in the park. Winston Cup regular Joe Nemechek drove the first ever truck onto Disney's year-old Speedway, and he was also the fastest at the end of both days. His top speed was 127.731 miles an hour around the unique triangular layout that had everybody talking.
The track it's different. It's kind of like a Pocono because it has 3 different corners. Turn one is similar to the turn 1 at Pocono. It's kind of a tight corner. Turn 2, there's nothing that we've ever raced on that even equates to it because there's 100 different ways to go through the corner, and none of them are the right way. I mean, you just go through there the best you can. And the dog leg in the front is kind of like Nazareth, the dog leg in the front straightaway there. So it's really unique. Your truck has really got to handle good. If the handle's good, you go fast.
Next year, NASCAR will eliminate its open test days on race weekends, instead leaving it up to the manufacturers to schedule anywhere up to 5 dates. But since the January 19th Chevy Trucks Challenge will be the inaugural truck show at the Disney track, the sanctioning body held its one and only open test scheduled at this point to give everybody a shot to try the track out.
You think it's got big banking, but once you get into the banking goes away, and then you go down the straightaway, then you go up into another banking. So basically, they just put mounds of dirt there and then put asphalt over it. So they really did a nice job. It's going to be interesting. What's so good about this race is, you know, we really haven't had a weekend off yet. We get to come out here so early in the year, and get to bring the family out a couple days early and go play at Disneyland and come out here and race.
Hornaday was just one of well over 50 drivers who showed up for the Disney test, trying to gather as much information as possible. And to help the current series champ and his team do that, owners Dale and Teresa Earnhardt sent their new Busch driver, Steve Park, along.
The reason why we're down here is because we just figured that with 2 trucks, we'll be able to learn twice as much in the same amount of time as maybe a single truck team. And being fortunate enough to be involved with Ron and Teresa and Dale Earnhardt, we were able to come down here with 2 trucks, 2 separate PI systems, and try to collect as much data as possible to really help Ron out in next month in the race down here.
The test in Orlando was also the first chance to see many of the changes for the '97 season. Reigning Rookie of the Year, Brian Refner has a new ride owned by former Trans Am driver Dale Phelan. Forrest Said takes over the wheel of the 44 that Refner piloted in '96. Jimmy Hensley has replaced Rich Bickle in Richard Petty's truck since Bickle left Petty to drive for Darrell Waltrip.
I just have a lot of confidence in what he's going to be able to do, and I just want to be sure that we're doing our part and giving him everything he needs to win races. I think he can do that for us if we give him what he needs.
Toby Butler will pilot Ken Schrader's Chevys in '97 with sponsorship from Purolator, while Tammy Jo Kirk made her first laps in a truck as teammate to Dave Rezendes at Jeff Bodine Racing. Jay Sauter debuted as Mike Skinner's replacement in the Goodwrench Chevys. Chuck Bounds started his job as Joe Ruttman's Roush Racing teammate, and reigning World of Outlaws champion Mark Kenzer made his first jump from sprint cars onto asphalt, planning to run a limited schedule next year.
I would like to make a step into the NASCAR series. This was my first step. Today wasn't too great of a day, but hopefully we can turn things around and I can show them guys down south that a sprint car driver can't cut the mustard on asphalt.
After running a couple of Winston Cup races this year, Virginia short track ace Stacy Compton has landed a ride with the new Impact Motorsports team, which is a spinoff of Butch Mock's Winston Cup operation.
It's going to be a good deal. It's a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option. We're going to run the entire truck season next year, or in '97, and probably some Winston Cup races, hopefully to maybe go on to Winston Cup at a later date. But I tell you, we got sponsorship should be announced by the end of the year, and everything's happening in a hurry. We wanted to make an official announcement and do it, in a big way, and this test come up, and Troy said we need to be at that test. So he bought the truck on Thanksgiving, and a lot has happened since Thanksgiving to get this thing up and running, and a lot of people's put in a lot of hours, and we're down here.
If we can bring Stacy into the truck series,
run a lot of these little bull rings that they run and come out of it, fairly successful. Run a couple Winston Cup races and see where he's at before we make that step into Winston Cup.
At a news conference as part of the test, Dodge announced it's upping its number of factory-backed teams in 1997. Included in the lineup are teammates Michael Dokken, who moves into the Dana Dodge, and 96 ASA champ Tony Raines, who will pilot the Pennzoil Dodge. You can probably expect many more changes before the opening race of the season at Disney, but several things are for sure. There's a rich purse on the line, and with no other major NASCAR Series racing yet, somewhere between 60 and 70 trucks are expected to try and qualify, which means what the drivers learned at this test could mean the difference in making the field.
Backtrack is brought to you by Prestone Antifreeze. Protect your car in the Prestone Zone.
It was February 1991 and a fitting 5-car salute to the troops of Desert Storm. At the start, Davey Allison had his Texaco Haviland number 28 on the pole. Ernie Irvin in the Kodak car was starting second. Jimmy Spencer had to stop for some fresh air when the Banquet number 98 went up in smoke. Throughout the day, a number of drivers took a turn out front, including Irvin and Dale Earnhardt. But the excitement in the 33rd edition of the Great American Race came in the closing laps. With 15 to go, Richard Petty crinkled the number 43. Rusty Wallace was making his first appearance in the Roger Penske Pontiac. He was fighting for the lead when he got together with Kyle Petty. After hard contact with the wall, Wallace was done. With 2 to go, Irvin has the advantage in the 4. Earnhardt and Allison are fighting for runner-up when the 3 gets loose, collecting Allison in the process. This causes the race to end under yellow. It's Ernie Irvin the first to cross the stripe. Sterling Marlin, Joe Ruttman, and Rick Mast finished 2 through 4. Somehow Earnhardt makes it around for 5th. Ernie Irvin, the 1991 winner of the Daytona 500.
After a short break, we'll talk with Joe Gibbs, former football coach and owner of the Interstate Batteries race team. We'll be right back.
I'd say that if you asked us to really be honest about our evaluation of where we are here, is that I'd say that we probably have shown that we could win almost any race. At any given time, our car, the 18 car, would be one that people in NASCAR said, well, they could win a race.
It's a pretty good deal. It's one of those things that started last year. Seems like it's carried on through the series. We got to set our trucks. Some racetracks where we have to qualify and they impound our trucks. That makes it tough because you can't really get a good qualifying setup, and then you got to rely on the halftime to make it there. And the way everybody's been running, if you don't start up front, you're going to get a lap down.
I think it's a good idea. It cuts the cost down on the teams, the expenses, bringing pit crew members in, to change tires and stuff. Also, it gives the fans at home an opportunity to go get something to drink or what have you, on the halftime and without missing some action on the racetrack.
I personally really would like to see pit stops because I think you can gain positions in the pits. If you got a good crew that can get you in and out, you can gain positions on some of these tracks where it might be hard to pass single file racing. And I mean, the Winston Cup guys do it, and they can make an adjustment, put a spring rubber in or move the track bar or whatever. So I'd kind of like to see it go to a full out pit stop, strategy and all that. I would like to see that happen.
Before he started his NASCAR Winston Cup race team back in 1992, Joe Gibbs was one of the most successful NFL football coaches of all time. His success there got him elected to the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The induction ceremonies were back in July of 1996, and the team painted up this car to commemorate the occasion, ran it at Talladega. I was here last week at Joe Gibbs Racing and had a sit-down talk with Joe Gibbs. Well, Joe, even though you're heavily involved in motorsports now, 1996 has been an exciting year for you in football with being inducted into the Hall of Fame, the NFL Films deal they did, which is quite an honor.
to me, it was almost like I was looking at, well, I'm probably closing my my past with football, really, because I'm so involved in auto racing. Yet, I'm still doing NBC work. And then I think the Hall of Fame really kind of closed my coaching chapter for me. You know, I don't think I'll ever go back. Of course, the coaching, everybody keeps asking me, are you going to? And it's kind of, I guess everybody that's had a background in auto racing realizes how exciting it is. But you tell people over there, I don't think I'm going back into coaching. They don't understand it. They keep saying, well, I know he's coming back. I know he's coming back. But really, I think the people are over here like yourself and realize how involved you got to be to make this thing work. And the fact I've got my kids working here with me in it, and JD works here with me all the time, and Coy, I can't see myself going back into coaching. So when the Hall of Fame thing came along, I told everybody, hey, I don't really think I deserve this, but I'm not giving it back. And I figured that's probably closing the door on my coaching, and it was a great finish to my coaching career. I was thrilled that I got a chance to do that. It was one of the greatest weekends I've ever experienced.
Now your boys are involved in driving. Did you expect that when you got into racing?
No, and you probably didn't either. I remember talking to Dale. I said, Dale, how'd you get in this? And he said you really didn't have anything to do with it. He was at a racetrack one night. He felt like he was going to play golf. He was either going to be a golfer or had these things about playing maybe college football or what have you. And he said one night a guy asked me to get in his car, and I got in there and I drove one race and said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And I don't think you planned that, and certainly I didn't. Now, what happened with my boys, they were both involved in football, but neither one wanted to coach. JD wanted to come down here and work on race cars. He was racing motorbikes at the time, and I looked at it, well, maybe I can get him off motorbikes and at least get him with some metal around him. And who knows how far they want to go with it, but they're both excited about it. Coy, then, when he came out of football, he jumped right into racing, and he works almost all the time up at a little shop he's got up here up north working on late model stock stuff. And they're both in racing. How far it'll go, we don't know. But it's kind of like Pat and I starting all over again with Friday night football. We're back out there now. It's just, Friday night racing.
That win at Atlanta was very timely for you and capped off a year that had been, I guess, a little disappointing.
That win at the end of the year and the fact that I think we did switch to our own motor program. That obviously sets you back some, but I think all of a sudden at the end of that year, what I was really pleased with was out of the last 8 races, we have 4 poles, and which showed our motor program had come all the way back to a point where I felt like we were competitive with anybody. And then Bobby started knocking at the door, and you could see we were there at a bunch of those races at the end of the year. And then to win that last one, I think it couldn't have come at a better time for us, our sponsors, and everybody else. And what I was really thrilled with that last race, Ned, is I thought it was one of the ones where every single car in the top 10 had a chance at that race. There was nobody that went out with a motor program. Nobody really got wrecked. And at some point, everybody had a shot at it. Everybody was in the top 10, the 2-car, Dale obviously had a shot at it. We had a shot at it. Childress and Earnhardt had a shot at it. Everybody did, Mark Martin. And for Bobby to somehow get that win at the end, I thought it was a big plus for us, and it was a big shot in the arm for everybody around here. Because you finish the year with a win like that after a struggle, I think it puts everybody here on a high.
Now you have a new challenge this year, changing over to Pontiacs.
I think it's going to be exciting. Yeah, believe me, we make decisions here at our race team. We've always tried to do it together. I don't go out and make decisions. Obviously, I'm matter of fact, Jimmy Makar and Bobby Labonte have a lot to do with all of our decision making here. Just like when we first started with Dale and Jimmy, they had a big input and really made all the racing decisions. And now we all sit down together. And this was a big decision for us. Should we switch? And we didn't do it without a lot of thought. And we went all the way to GM. I talked to everybody inside of GM. They all kind of agreed that they thought it would be good for their programs if we did this. We talked to the sponsors at length. We talked to Bobby and Jimmy. Where do we think our future lies? And then we took off and tested the Pontiac. We tested it in a wind tunnel. We tested it on the racetrack. We had Bobby drive it. Obviously, we don't want Bobby driving a car that he's not excited about. And we went through a lot of steps. And eventually, it became obvious that we felt like there weren't many negatives, other than the fact that we didn't like leaving Chevrolet. We didn't like leaving our Monte Carlo. But even GM agreed that it was best for their future probably, and for ours too, to go ahead and take off with the Pontiac.
Are there similarities in the people and managing the people in auto racing that there were in football and keeping them motivated?
I think it's, Ned, I've said it's exactly the same. It's funny, if people could be in both those fields, and I guess I'm one of the few that's been able to really be able to enjoy both those fields, it's exactly the same. Everything that happened to me in football with the people, and it's a people business. Football is. Racing's a people business, as you know. When you put one of these teams together, we got like 45 people here working now. It's almost the same numbers I had in football. You know, I had 45 football players. We now have 45 people working on race cars. All the problems you have with people, as you know, people bring problems. You know, you got some people problems. So when you have people, that means people together. And you got a sport, and you got money, and you got careers, and you got people wanting to win, and it's competitive. And it's the same thing over here now, and racing and football are almost exactly the same. So I'd say there's a lot of parallels there, and I guess that's why I enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed people, I enjoy sports, I enjoy the competitive part of it. I've always loved football, and I've always loved racing. So I guess they all fit together, really, but it's almost the same kind of problems you have in both fields, and the same kind of thrills.
Joe Gibbs, what a dynamic individual. Still to come on this edition of Inside NASCAR, we'll have the mailbox and lots more, so don't go away. As we leave you for this break, here's an exclusive offer for Inside NASCAR fans. The Inside NASCAR mailbox is brought to you by Miller. Our question today is from Desta Messer from Jacksonville, Florida. When a team such as Bobby Labonte's changes from one manufacturer like Chevy to another like Pontiac, what happens to all the parts, chassis, and etc.?
Hi, Desta. Thanks for writing in. That's a great question. When we switched from Chevrolet to Pontiac, all that we're really changing is just the body. So we'll sell the old Monte Carlo bodies that were on the cars. We'll sell those to other Winston Cup teams or Busch teams or ARCA teams, etc. Then we also have a whole bunch of other parts that we'll only use 1 or 2 times, and then we'll sell that as used also. Thanks for writing in. It's a great question.
If you have any race questions, write to us at Inside NASCAR, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller jacket, and you'll also receive the Winston Cup Scene CD-ROM with all the drivers, tracks, stats, and video finishes from all the races. For CD-ROM orders only, call 1-800-380-7404.
We have another story on the NASCAR Winston Cup trip to Japan and lots more coming up on this edition of Inside NASCAR. We'll be right back. The next time you see this Pontiac from Joe Gibbs Racing, you'll be on the racetrack at Rockingham, North Carolina in February, the second race of the 1997 season. Well, the last race of the 1996 season wasn't a points race, but they did run in Japan. It was an experience for the drivers and teams and the officials and all of those who made the trip. So we followed along that experience on Richard Childress' 2 cars, the 3 and the 31.
NASCAR's first official trip to Japan was also the first official outing for Richard Childress Racing as a 2-car operation. Dale Earnhardt and Mike Skinner will be teammates in '97, and their crews started laying the groundwork during their visit to the Far East. Kevin Hamlin debuted as Skinner's crew chief after moving over from the #1 car, and he says the exhibition race gave him some time to get adjusted.
Well, there's no doubt that it's a plus because it's kind of an orientation race, so Mike and I can get acquainted, and I can get used to working with some of these guys and then get used to working with me. We can kind of read each other on, you know, who's going to do what, who wants what he wants, what I can give him, what we can figure out how to communicate good.
David Smith was Earnhardt's crew chief in '96, but next season he'll be the general manager of Skinner's team.
You know, that 31 team's going to have its own identity. It's going to have its own goals, and certainly we want to win races and win the Rookie of the Year with Mike Skinner. But you know, we're also going to be you know, things we can find out there that maybe, you know, we may try some things that we don't want to try with the 3-car, and that will help that team. And that's another reason for having that. And of course, we'll get the extra testing time. So it's going to work out great, and I'm looking forward to working with Mike and with Kevin Hamlin and all the guys there, and it's going to be a great team.
Because neither team's regular sponsor has an international presence, they both carry different colors at Suzuka. Earnhardt drove a blue AC Delco machine instead of a black Goodwrench one, while Skinner sported a snap-on paint scheme instead of the Lowe's colors he'll wear next year. Either way, everybody was already getting pumped about the new season.
Yeah, it's a real sweet situation. I mean, I'm real excited. You know, the fact is we're going to try to do this deal as a two-car, one-car team. You know, there's two cars, but we're going to try to do it as one group unit anyway, you know, kind of like Robert's done with the 88 and 28 car, and that's worked really well for him, and that's what Richard wants to happen here. You know, Dale and them are going to be able to help us a tremendous amount, and hopefully we're going to be able to help them a tremendous amount by the testing we do and the information and feedback we give. You know, it's going to be a good two-way street, I hope.
It's a new challenge, and it'll be different because, you know, with Earnhardt, you always knew where you were. And you know how, you know, you knew what to expect from him. And with Mike, it will be a new experience, is the unknown about him, you know. And, but I think there's going to be a lot of good things that have come from him. So that part of it's exciting to think about, yeah.
Go Earnhardt! Go Earnhardt! Go Earnhardt!
While the Japan trip was a chance to get a jump on 97, the guys also got to see how a whole different culture accepted them.
We want to be focused, but at the same time, we want to have a good time, too, and try to understand what Japan's all about and the customs and how the people are. And, you know, it's a totally different society from the United States.
But as it turns out, the guys didn't get to venture too far from the racetrack.
Yeah, we've been out in the amusement park more than anything. We ain't been able to do anything outside of here, but we've been able to slide over and ride go-karts and ride some of the rides every day after the practice got over.
And no doubt, when the whole trip was over, there was plenty to talk about on the long plane ride home.
The new dash rules state that the dash can only be 18 to 20 inches measured from this point here to this point here. Our old dashes were quite a bit longer because our driver is pretty short and he can't reach the switches very easy, so it's going to be a little bit of a problem for us. We're going to have to build an extension over on the left-hand side over there for the switch panels.
Well, even though there's no racing going on this time of the year, there's still lots going on in the sport, and we're going to be here every weekend on TNN on Inside NASCAR to keep you up to date. Now let's take a look at what's coming up next week right here on Inside NASCAR.
When most people think of NASCAR racing, the first place that comes to mind is the Charlotte, North Carolina area, but not so anymore. NASCAR has recently opened a second office in New York City, along with their home base in Daytona Beach, Florida. Our Marlowe Claim will show us NASCAR's new digs in the Big Apple. He'll introduce you to the 4 Japanese drivers who took part in NASCAR's inaugural Suzuka Thunder Special 100. While none of the locals had a shot at the win, they did receive high praises from the Winston Cup regulars who made the trip to the Far East. All this and more next week on Inside NASCAR.
Steve Park is a name that you'll be hearing a lot about in the future in NASCAR racing. He bursted on the scene in 1996 and has a solid ride for 1997 with Dale Earnhardt in the Busch Series. And Steve Park is the subject of this week's Inside NASCAR Profile.
Today's Inside NASCAR Profile is brought to you by Prestone Antifreeze. Protect your car in the Prestone Zone.
Back in September, Dale and Teresa Earnhardt named modified driver Steve Park the new pilot for the number 3 Busch car in '97. Since then, it's been a whirlwind for the native New Englander. Park started his new job driving the Busch race at Charlotte. Then he was Ron Hornaday's teammate in a truck at the season finale in Las Vegas. For Park, September was the worst time to be named the new driver. Since only 3 races remained on the Busch Series schedule, he had little time to show off his talents.
It's been hard, you know. We've had the opportunity to kind of do a little bit of testing and with the truck, and also we got a chance to go to Charlotte. And you know, I'm real excited about getting started, and you know, I'm looking forward to it.
On this day, we find Steve all dressed up, but nowhere to race. The look is for his first official photo shoot as the new driver of the Earnhardt Chevy. The car will sport new colors in '97. AC Delco's red, white, and blue replace the intimidating black of GM Goodwrench. A welcome change, says Park, as he tries to find his own identity.
It's real exciting. We're kind of getting our own identity here now without, with AC Delco and not having to run a black number 3 car, which identifies Dale Earnhardt. And, I'm real excited about getting started, and I know the people from AC Delco are, and the car looks great, and we're looking forward to getting started.
The pictures taken today will end up on the cards that fans receive at the racetrack or at autograph sessions with their favorite drivers. This shoot was enough to test the patience of any veteran driver, as Steve patiently got primped, patted, pinned, and patronized for more than 3 hours trying to get those few keepers that will end up on the finished product that the fans will see starting in February at Daytona.
We're doing this really for the opportunity for the fans to get some really nice autograph cards, and it's great for our new sponsor, and I know I'm real excited about it. Dale is, and AC Delco people, so we're looking forward to getting the photo shoot done. It's a pretty neat place, and it's been a lot of new experience for myself, which I'm really enjoying.
While forcing a smile for 3 hours may not be the best part of the new job, it just might be the easiest thing that Dale Earnhardt asked of his new driver.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this show. We hope you enjoyed it, and our thanks to Crew Chief Jimmy Makar and all the folks here at Joe Gibbs Racing for allowing us to show you around their shops. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.
Today's show has been brought to you by Texaco Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Take it to the star. And by Miller Lite. With the great taste of an ice-cold Miller Lite, life is good. And by Pep Boys. 26,000 items at the guaranteed low price. Tires and service, too. Everything but gas. Before you make your holiday wish list, you better get the special edition Simpson catalog. Stuffed with new products, special offers, and values for both racers and fans. Call 1-800-71-RACING to get your copy. The official conversion van of Inside NASCAR is Gladiator by Glovell, America's #1 luxury van. Glovell, the way we put it together sets us apart. Communications for Inside NASCAR provided by Racing Radios, Forest Park, Georgia, the official communications of NASCAR and the Winston Cup Series.